got going on, the philosophy that you have, why is it that the sisters seem to want to challenge that? I mean, because this is wonderful. I mean, you elegant, you got all this going. Why is there a challenge with the sisters with you in relationships and just in passing?
Well, you know, it's interesting because I got a documentary coming out called Niggas Ain't Shit. And in that documentary, I deal with the influence of the Willie Lynch aspect on our sisters. Okay, and on the Willie Lynch side, there's actually some phraseology in the Willie Lynch letter where it talked about beating the bitch out of the black woman, but making sure that when and if that bitch comes out, it only comes out on the black man. Okay, so what we're really dealing with is a
So when they said beating the bitch out, what do they mean? They mean physically beating her?
Well, yeah, that too. You know what I'm saying? Today, the whip is economic. You know what I'm saying? The whip is if you don't, you know, if you don't make sure that you're in alignment with us, you know what I mean, then we'll take your welfare away. We'll take your food stamps away. We'll take your job away. So that's an economic whip. You know what I mean? To make sure that if a bitch, meaning that what I call the ancient mama slave swag comes out, that it don't come out on massa, it comes out on the black man. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people don't really understand that slavery was about man to man. It was about the white man and the black man. It wasn't about the black woman. She was just a tool. And so a lot of times the vitriol, the contempt that we deal with our women is exactly what was set in place for the black man so that we will have certain struggles in our evolution. You know, so go ahead.
Well, no, yes, but the thing is, why should the sisters? They say, well, beating the bitch out of it, you know, you're gonna hear it when they see this vid, but
right,
they're gonna say beating the bitch out of it. Why should we listen to them? We already economic. We CEOs. I have a Lexus. I have my Mercedes, big house. What is he talking about? What is he? They need the black men. They locked up. They need to be on some economic beatings and this and that. What are they talking about? What are those men? What can they tell me?
Yeah, and that's exactly the whole point. Is that even on the slave plantation, in the cottage or whatever it was, Massa intentionally put her in charge of the household. He educated her in terms of bookkeeping and okay, we're getting low on corn, or we this and that. He taught her these types of things so that she would deem herself more educated than the black man. But that was done on purpose. So it doesn't shock me and surprise me that black women have more degrees than black men. Black men making more cheese, you dig? But you know, but despite that, you know what I'm saying? They deem themselves as higher than us, but that's all set in place to create a division and dissension between us. So when a black woman breaks up her family, that's exactly what Massa wants your ass to do. You ain't doing nothing but what Massa told your ass to do.
So do you think that most black women, and particularly, I hear you talking about it sometimes, in most of your vids, about the Western black woman, do you think that they are even aware of this state at this point? I mean, and where America's going? I mean, the country itself, the state of people, the state of black people in America. Do you think they are aware of this at all?
I think that you know, I did a video recently where I broke down women, and I said there's 3 types of women. You got stupid ones, you got dumb ones, you got ignorant ones. Right? An ignorant woman is somebody that just don't know. You know what I'm saying? From the get to the go. She don't know what's happening. You know what I'm saying? She just ignorant, right? Then you got a dumb one. You know what I'm saying? And the dumb one, she don't even want to know. You know what I'm saying? She could know, but she don't want to know. Okay, but the stupid one is the interesting one because she has some knowledge. And a lot of times in our culture, you got women that call themselves conscious. Well, we're conscious. So they have some knowledge. They wear locks and you know, they understand stuff about gemstones, and, you know, they burn the sage, and, you know what I'm saying? They study about, you know, the various herbs and things that you take. Oh yeah, you use turmeric for this, and you mix this with that for this, and, you know, and the third. But see, when you start talking about bringing information to her that requires her to change something about herself, right? Then all them herbs and spices go out the window, you dig? So, you know, it's like, okay, well, what happened to all of the consciousness? And so that's an issue in the black community, because a stupid person is someone that has some knowledge, but they don't want the rest of it, right? Because then they're going to become responsible for what they know. So in a sense, you know, it's, you know, you have to sort of pinpoint what kind of woman you're dealing with, you know, when you address them or when you assess them.
Man, so this brings me to this point too, as far as men. Men, you always say there's men, not boys. Your channel's for men.
Right.
What do you suggest them do? Do you suggest them just leave the black woman at this point in America? What do you tell me? What are you saying? What are you really ultimately saying if men are trying to build? I mean, 'cause I know for myself that I'm building, and I do struggle with the sisters. I have to admit that. But I'm asking you, what is some of the advice, that you can even share with some of the men, and to kind of get in their train of thought of the next step for them as builders in America?
Well, you know, building relies largely on creativity, and the energy of creativity is masculine. Okay, if you look at any city skyline, it's men that built that. Okay, but what you need as a Superman, if you will, is a Lois Lane, right? That's gonna play her role and be that support system, right? Well, I did a video in which I asked the question, does a white woman go better with a black man's Brooks Brothers suit? And the answer, of course, is no, right? But if I represent masculinity, what does go best with masculinity is femininity. That's a match. That's a click right there. You dig? And so that's a number one problem that a lot of black men have with black women, is there's a lack of femininity. You know, in my past relationship, I was told, you know, you have a big ego. Okay, well, I want to do big things. So if I want to do big things, I got to have an ego to accommodate those things. I have to believe that I can have that, right? That I can achieve that. And ultimately, the goal is to make all of our lives better, right? But she said, you have a big ego, and sometimes I feel like I have to compete with it. And again, this goes back to the way a lot of our women have been programmed to see the black man more as competition, right? To see him as something to contend with rather than something to support, you know, and allow him to go out there and be, you know, to be that great builder that he needs to be. So, you know, this is an ongoing issue in the black community. I suggest to men to find the women that are the most feminine. I didn't say she had to be white. You know, she might be Asian, she might be Latina, she might be another woman of color, you know, which would be my first suggestion. Try to find you a woman of color, you know what I mean? But if you know, you know, Becky's hip size, you know, kind of, you know, does it for you, you know what I'm saying, and you know, or whatever, but most importantly, she knows her position and her role and doesn't think that that's something that's negative. You know what I'm saying? Malcolm X said, in all organizations, someone, he didn't say two, but he said one has to be the boss. He said, even if that organization consists of one person, you have to become the boss of yourself, right? The problem is, I think a lot of times in our community, we don't understand what those roles are, and we try to put that back into this traditional thing that we feel like doesn't apply today. You know what I'm saying? But it's fundamental mathematics. You know what I mean?
So I hear you quote Malcolm a lot too.
Right.
And I didn't really personally, I didn't know Malcolm really spit game about that aspect of life, if you will, about understanding women and dealing with women, how to deal with them. From when you learned that from Malcolm, what did you take from Malcolm, and what inspires you to even get any game from Malcolm on that aspect? You know what I mean? So I was always kind of curious about that myself, and I don't know if the viewers were too. Like, for Malcolm of all people, you quote him quite a bit, and I've heard in your videos. Tell me a little bit about that as well. I want to know.
Well, Malcolm come from game in terms of Detroit Red. You know what I'm saying? In terms of Malcolm talked about the fact that he learned about women not from what his mama should have told him, right? But he learned about women from prostitutes.
But see,